Samples and Tests says, when doing a project for a friend's business, how should one calculate labor if it feels like doing a favor, but they expect you to bill them? So that comes into, see, friends are hard because, like, if I'm going to play both sides of the fence here, your friend wants you to build something for them. They expect you to bill them. That means they don't want you to work for free, and they value the friendship. So they don't want you to feel beholden to them or like they've been ripping you off. Now, the same is true on the other side. You don't want to overcharge them. In fact, you'd probably be fine way undercharging them, but you also recognize that they want the satisfaction of paying you for your work. All of these things are true, and I have dealt with all of these. I have done it in a few ways. Sometimes I've kicked the favor forward. If, you know, maybe you could help me do this later. There are times when I've just said, well, I mean, the best is just to name a number and get comfortable with it. And that split between the two personalities of, like, I want to pay you fairly but not overpay you, and I don't want you to be resentful, and I don't want to be resentful but I want to be paid fairly, but I don't want you to overpay, that you're never going to figure out exactly what the right amount is. Like the Jerry Seinfeld episode, it was $167 in cash. No, but naming a number, being the first one to name a number, is a way to show some respect in the friendship. And you're going to want to name a number that is reasonable and sort of fits that bill. I wish I had a more definitive answer for you, but that kind of friendship work can be really, really fraught. And it's nice to actually say on the upfront, even to be explicit with your friend about the ways in which you don't want each other to resent each other. The friendship takes precedence. Oh, okay. There's one other story I want to tell about money loaning. A million years ago, I went to a friend of mine and I said, can I borrow $500? I was one of those friends. I totally managed my money so poorly in my 20s. And I was like, dude, can I borrow $500? And this friend, who was not wealthy, they just were good with their money. They were like, my brother, I will loan you $500, but here are the terms. And I was like, uh-oh. He's like, I'm going to give you this money. Thank you to various cheeses for gifting memberships. He said, I'm going to give you this money, and I'm going to ask you when you're going to pay me back. And I was like, July 31st. And he was like, great. I don't want to hear about this money until July 31st. And if you can't pay me on July 31st, that's fine. All I want to hear on July 31st is the date you will pay me. Then he said, that means we have an agreement to not talk about or deal with this money until that date, and then we'll decide as either we deal with it or a second date. And it was such a beautiful prioritization of the friendship. And this has been my money lending rule ever since. Whenever I have lent money to friends, I have said the same exact thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful way to maintain the relationship. And it feels germane to the question about doing business for friends. Shane Schellenberger asks, do you lean towards showing someone how to do a job, or do you think they should be handed the instruction manual and allow them to learn from their mistakes? I don't think it's either one of those. I think it's somewhere in between, and I think it's person by person. There are so many variables in there. For instance, I've got a friend who's supervising a small team, but he's way younger than the team he's supervising. Thus, when they don't do stuff the way he wants it done, they won't listen to him if he just says that's wrong. He has to find a way to navigate these older people who have less respect for him, even though he's got more institutional experience than them. That's a real navigation. I do like letting people tell me what they would like to know. And yet, there are times there are specific tools that do specific things. I think that I'm much more in the latter camp of letting people find their way. But that's mostly because I like to not bother people when they're doing what they're doing. I want them just to feel free to go do that. I will then keep an eye on them and step in. Actually, I'll give you a lovely example of this. Hold on, I'll be right back. Hi. This is the helmet of the XEMU spacesuit that I built for the G4 Network's launch a couple years ago now, 2 years ago now. And like an XEMU helmet, it has actually not one bubble, but 2 bubbles. And these are not circular bubbles. So they're not exactly the same shape. So I had to have 6 of these pulled and find 2 that matched each other. And then I had to sink them into this circular race milled out of Delrin. And so these are 2 ovals of slightly different shapes in a hard piece of Delrin. So Jen Schachter, the inimitable and amazing Jen Schachter, was working for me on this gig. And Jen came in and I said, I'm going to give you these two helmets. They're trimmed to size. I need them to sink into 2 pockets, and I need you to do that on the CNC mill. And Jen went away to do it. Jen's great on the CNC. And I thought about it that night, and I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, man, getting those 2 movable ovals to each sit in a race with close tolerance in a trough, an oval trough, that's an ass kicker of a job. I mean, if you gave it to me, it would kick my ass. I know this. Even if I knew how to use the CNC machine, I mean, even if I knew how to program the CNC machine, it would still be an ass kicker. It's a logistically tough thing to get these in relation to each other, no matter what. And so I called Jen the next morning and I was like, by the way, the job I gave you yesterday, is it kicking your ass? She was like, yes. And I was like, it would kick anybody's ass. And she was like, oh my God, thank you so much for telling me. I was worried that it was me, which is a really good thing to keep an eye on for the people that work for you, is to tell them when stuff should be hard. Because she could have spun out for the next couple of days thinking that she's dumb and somehow there's some secret that she didn't know about, but there wasn't. And all I had to do was think about my approach to it to realize, oh, you know what I would have wanted in Jen's position? I would have wanted to hear that this is a legit ass kicker of a thing to do, not just like a slightly tough job for someone who doesn't know how to do it. That's the kind of instruction I like to give. And by the way, I mean, holy hell, this piece is, of all the 23 spacesuits I own and have made and built and traded over the years, this might be my favorite thing I've built for a spacesuit, because it's just like the most frickin' difficult. Christian Carling, I am 38 years old with ADHD. I know I have the skills I can monetize, but I struggle with the business side of this. Any strategies I can employ to organize the business side as a self-employed maker? This is a great one to finish on. I think it's really, your question actually tells me that you have, I think, the right frame of mind about it, really specifically, because I think a lot of people, I felt this in the past, but I think a lot of people listening might be in the camp of, oh, I know how to build stuff, but I have no idea how to market it. I'm stupid. At least that's what my internal monologue is always saying when I can't figure something out. And you're not stupid. Some people are built to do business and some people aren't. Not to say that there's like some hard line, but I mean, like, it might not come naturally to you. That doesn't mean you can't make money as a business person. It just means that it doesn't come naturally to you. And so you're asking, are strategies you can employ to organize the business side as a self-employed maker? When I am building something that has many parts to it, and a business is literally the definition of something with a million moving parts that are all interdependent and obscure, I like to do the hard stuff first. If I had advice for a young modeler with ADHD, I would say, put yourself in the mindset of doing the hard stuff first. And the hard stuff is chronicling your stuff, billing, taking care of your financials. The other things are spreading the word about yourself, saying what you're working on, learning how to document your work, learning how to tell other people about it, because other people's word of mouth is going to be the best business you will get. Making lists, there are all sorts of books and websites and YouTube videos out there helping people run a small business, and all of them are packed with good advice. It's worth watching a few to sort of see some of the things you might be able to take. But the hardest parts about business is not doing the work. It's not even building. It's getting the work to you. And that really is all about being vocal about what you're doing. Not being boorish about it, but spreading that word. And then in the business stuff, look, ADHD is, we bounce around so much. So many, you're like, look at that bird, puppies, it's July. Like, thoughts are constantly interrupting, derailing your train of thought. And the hard stuff is the rigmarole, the time, tax, bureaucracy of running a small business. Here's a good one. One of the hardest things to do with ADHD specifically is quick gear switching from this project to this project, from plaster to feathers, from billing to, lounging. Knowing that one doesn't like gear switching is a really important way to manage gear switching. And then doing things like I have done here at the cave, like, okay, I'm going to try and get 1 day a week when I don't have meetings so that I don't have to worry about gear switching at least 1 day a week. I don't succeed many weeks, but that's fine. Just knowing that gives me some space and creates more space. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.